I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Anatomy of a Movie. This week's Operation Bad Words. I'm John Comerford. I'm joined in the studio by Sara Stretton.
Hello, everybody.
Demetri Panos.
Hello.
And in the booth, humming for us, is Marisa Serafini.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, yes. So, do we have bad words for this, or do we only have kind things to say?
I will say that it was definitely a good movie. It was very fun. I can see that through the fact that it made me so uncomfortable so many times. Like, also, I should point out that a spelling bee was probably my worst fear.
Oh, really? Wow.
As a kid.
Okay.
I hated
Which part? The getting up in front of people, or the spelling, or both?
Spelling. Mostly spelling. Like, still to this day, like if you ask me to spell something out loud, it's so hard for me. I like get lost track.
Arcs your brain.
Yeah, I think I have like very, very minor dyslexia where I'll just like switch my letters around, so my words around. So spelling bee, having to stand up there and like say something. Oh my gosh, terrifying! Literally, it made me scared at certain parts of this movie. I felt so bad for them. And then on top of that, I guess maybe I've just never been a big user of bad words. And I was just like, oh, children, stop.
Yeah. And then 2 children in front of children, at children. Yes.
But it was funny and it was good. And like, I part of me was like, oh no, but then I was like laughing and I'm like, I'm a horrible person. I should not be laughing at this. This is awful. But it was a lot of fun to watch.
Demetri.
I really like this fucking movie.
There you go. That's it. The gauntlet has been thrown.
And you just made this podcast
Nice.
explicit.
There you go. Wait till I read a quote from this movie.
Wow.
Big fan. I really like this movie a lot. I thought it was a very smart script. And I had a really good time. It had laughs. It went to places that I didn't think it could go, or I've never seen go before. I didn't feel uncomfortable. I was just laughing at the brazen. I love this kind of humor. I love angry humor. And when you can make it so that the most important thing about it is that the movie had a heart. And the movie, right from the get-go, from Jason Bateman's overvoice, Guy Trilby, he says he was coming from a point of anger and pain, and he even admits, I'm not sure that this isn't the right way to go, but this is what he had. And so right there off the bat, you understand where this is coming. Like, it's coming from a place, our main character knows this isn't
Not necessarily
exactly
rational or reasonable.
right, but
honest, because
he was honest, and this movie made me laugh. It had and it had heart. Like, his character walks that very thin line where he could have gone to like straight, I can't follow this guy because I don't like him, but you did like him. And that was very important in this movie. And then when he couples up with that kid, and it works. And, a spelling bee movie, this was no Aquila and the Bee, folks.
Yeah.
Definitely not Aquila and the Bee. But I love sarcasm. I love that kind of humor. Jason Bateman is great at delivering those lines. And the take no prisoners attitude of no, I'm going to do this, and this is a loophole, and I don't really give a shit because I'm going to win.
That was the interesting part to me, though, is that I think that honestly what saved this movie for me was Bateman. Because, as you said, there was a very fine line there. And I was very inclined to not like him. Like, straight from the beginning, like, not a lot of sympathy there for me. And, like, as much as I was laughing, I didn't want to be on his side. And what kept me going through this film was the likability that I think Bateman has just as a person. but I think I was also probably influenced because I've always seen him play such nice guys. So that made it more acceptable for me to be on his side. If this was an unknown actor that I had no relationship with, I think that I would have been a step more removed and would not have been laughing as much. I think that's a good choice because Bateman directed it, so he had to be like, okay, I can do this. Obviously.
Yeah, but he didn't want to act in it.
No.
He didn't. He didn't want to take that job. But everybody either was busy or just flat out turned him down.
Exactly, because it's not easy. Let's get in, Marisa here. What was your thoughts?
Overall, and I admit I didn't want to go see this movie because I knew it was going to be that really rash humor, that the very very offensive kind of humor that I'm like, it's kind of a turnoff for me. But going into it, and the first 10 seconds with his voiceover, he says the word shit. And I'm like, okay, he's setting the tone for how the movie's going to be. There's going to be a lot of cuss words. I mean, the movie's called Bad Words. But I thought his personality was really consistent throughout. And even though his character, the physicality of him doesn't change, like he's not doing any extreme fighting or anything, I thought the dialogue was really strong throughout the whole movie that kept the story going.
Well, I would agree absolutely. I also want to echo a few things that you've already said. I thought I did cringe. There are times I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're saying that to a kid," because it did. I don't have kids, so it's not like I have that thing going on. It's just like I just can't imagine. But I also think it was a brilliant choice to choose Jason Bateman because
even if it was
he's extremely likable. And except for the change-up, because in the change-up with Ryan Reynolds, he does say some horrible, mean things because he's, quote, somebody else in that particular movie. So, but that was the only taste of it. But anyway, I gave him so much leeway because it's Jason Bateman. And I also love this humor. Having done the stand-up circuit and stuff like that, I like it when you said, this is what we're doing today. We're going this far and maybe a little bit farther, and we're not going to back off at all. Yeah. And they did. It's bad words for a reason, and then when they go there, and just when it gets uncomfortable, and you go, please, stop, and they go a little bit more, and then they go, stop, okay, thank you. And then you can breathe again. But I'm laughing the whole time.
And I'll say again, I just point back to the script, and I think, yes, I mean, Jason Bateman took the role out of necessity, and yes, he's fantastic. To your point, I think the script was so strong that if you had a talented actor who could do that he could come across with that likability because that overvoice sets the character is he knows what he's doing is not appropriate, but he's coming from a place of such pain and hurt.
And I think that was brilliant about that.
Yes.
Is the way they withheld that. You knew something was underneath, and you knew he had a reason. You didn't know what it was, but they were really stingy about giving that. Gave it to you way late in the script.
Yep.
And for me, I kept thinking, why
Same
is
here.
he doing this? And I thought that was very clever because, a lot of times they'll give you too much up front, and this time they held it, which is very smart.
Yeah, and if the other thing, too, I'm going to add to this, for me, one of my favorite sports movie, if not favorite sports movie, is 1974 is The Bad News Bears.
Sure.
Okay, when that movie came out, it was PG rated. Oh my God, the controversy because it had kids smoking, swearing, and doing whatever. But what was brilliant about The Bad News Bears is the fact that it was a satire in which the kids acted more like adults and the adults in that movie were acting like kids. This movie had a very tiny hint of that because you had the adults who were like, what about my kid? And you had that one woman who stands up. It had that hint of that satire, which I really love, where the kids were actually more adultish, especially the little boy.
Hey, even Jason Bateman is basically throwing a tantrum. It's just lasting a long time.
And he admits that he's throwing. He admits that I'm being childish and I'm throwing a tantrum. This is not the right way to do this, but this is where I am. And to me, that made me empathize with him. I will say there was only one time where I was like going, oh my God, I can't believe it was the ketchup packet on the girl's chair. Yeah. I was like, I knew exactly where that was going. And I'm like going, oh my God, I can't believe that that's where he's going to go with that. And it just kept on going. I'm like, oh, this movie's great. I was like, He's
like, that's great. I'm like, those were the instances where I was like, so over the edge with when he messed with the contestants.
Yeah, that was cringeworthy.
That to me was just like, so overline. I understood him fighting against the parents, and I understood even the sabotage of or wanting to sabotage the spelling bee. All that felt like a fight because he was playing. He had to be strong and and be aggressive at counterattacks. But the kids, I never felt were attacking him.
Well, there was that one kid. No, that one kid that he sits down to and he goes, "What are you doing here, weirdo?" And he goes, "Oh, your chair."
Yeah, but what did the girl do? The girl did nothing.
She did nothing. She was just in his way.
Eliminating some competition.
I know.
The boy he originally sits next to, who gets the underwear too. All of that was very uncalled for and unprovoked. And I think it was because honestly, simultaneously, we're getting his friendship growing with one of the kids. So I'm like, they all could be so nice. Yeah. So why are you destroying their hopes and dreams?
You're right. It's totally uncalled for, but the movie is bad words. It is what it is. But what I liked about it is, again, this is the game we're playing. We're gonna go this far, and it's we've seen it a lot lately. And let's face it, Breaking Bad, it was a character, the main character. Do you like him? Do you not like him? Do you root for him? Do you not root for him? This is the same kind of character in a much different way, but. Do you root for this guy? He's the lead. Do you want him to find some sort of resolution at the end with his father? Do you want that? Or do you just go, no, because he's just such a bad guy? And look what he did to those poor kids. They did nothing to him.
Yeah, I think...
it's challenging.
And Jason Bateman himself, I saw him in an interview, and it was a very interesting comparison. He brought up Archie Bunker from All in the Family. He's like, look at that character. He goes, this is a character... who in the time for All in the Family was always saying un-PC things, and but yet at the same time, Carol O'Connor was able to bring a humanity to Archie Bunker that you didn't hate him. You would look back and laugh at his buffoonishness because you knew that he's being a buffoon, but in the end. You would sympathize with him, or when Sammy Davis plants a kiss on him, his reaction. So, and Jason Bateman was sort of kind of likening his character in a sense. He goes, very un-PC. He goes, but you had to find like a humanity about the guy, or else you can't. The movie wouldn't work. And I agree 100%.
And I think it's interesting that the humanity of that one is in his, wanting for the family unit and for his father, but two, I think it's even more greatly founded in the little boy.
Sure, absolutely.
I think that again, relationship makes his character survive because you want this. It's all about that little boy, and I think that he did such a good job of just constantly being endearing and sweet throughout the entire film. That I think that. This is a lot also on his shoulders. And
I do too. I think it lives, it raises itself because of that relationship. Because I liken the main character, Gus.
Guy.
Thank you for correcting me. With Llewyn Davis' character in, help me out.
Inside Llewyn
Davis. Not Llewyn Davis' character, but actual Llewyn Davis. Because he's, again, an unlikable character. Does some horrible things, says some horrible things. And for me, that I wasn't able to hang with him like I was able to hang with Jason Bateman. Now maybe it's just it's a comedy and stuff like that, and you get some leeway. But I think it's because of those relationships, especially with the little kid.
I didn't think of it. I didn't think of it until you just brought it up. But I think you make a fantastic example of like inside Llewyn Davis he's just not a likable character, and there's really not much humanity or anything redemptive about him. He always makes the wrong decisions here, and he doesn't do it he just does it because he gets in his own way. He's not likable, and you're right. But Jason Bateman's character, again, and I think that it's very important that the character is self-aware. The way that it's written, he knows this isn't the right course of action, but he is tantruming like a kid. Bringing in the boy, this Rohan Chand is the actor's name. Like, that kid was fantastic. And that he was going to lend there was going to be a connection. But how does that connection work? And again, this is the strength of the movie. It could have been really sappy.
Oh, yeah.
It could have been really over the top, but no, it never really it solidifies, and it comes to for me, it was a very satisfactory conclusion. but throughout, like, there was nothing overly sappy about it. And, the kid was great. I guess this Rohan was the only one that had to audition. Everybody else did their parts as a favor. Did Jason, and they wanted to. He was the only kid, the only one, and he said Jason Bateman said they brought in like 30 kids, the kids from out of New York, and he looked at him, and then he ended up Skyping with him, and he just called. He goes, "The kid's like a ray of sunshine." He was great, and he understood the comedic elements. And I talked to the parents, because this is a tough movie. The parents have to be on board. I sort of liken it, although again, when you talk about another extreme, Chloe Moretz in Kick-Ass, like the first Kick-Ass movie. I mean, that little girl drops the C-bomb, and holy cow! And Jason Bateman, like, the director, Matthew Vaughn, had to talk to the parents and say, this is what we're doing, and make sure the kid gets it. And he did it with his Rohan Chand, and his expressions were great. And even when he gets to swearing, it's great.
That's just the part I wanted to jump on and like add to what you said, because this isn't an atypical relationship thing that we have said it before in like. And it's even mentioned in the film, in The Grinch and the Cindy Lou Who, in your classics of like Scrooge and Tiny Tim. Like that's where this relationship is like derives from. But what they changed in Bad Words is that they have the innocent be slightly corrupted, or at least get to the point where they're ready to like play this ping pong battle, and he doesn't become a bad person or evil or any type of that, but he does get that kind of grown-up flair where he can at least rise to that.
Right.
He can challenge him.
And even that is very interesting, because he doesn't do it to win.
Right.
Whereas normally in a traditional script, you'd hear, Jason Bateman's character would go, I'm going to feel for the kid, and I'm going to give it up for the kid. So
Right.
And they don't do that.
No.
Or the kid would say, okay, fine, you found me out, now I'm going to beat you and I'm going to win. And he doesn't do it to win the tournament, he does it to win his friendship.
Yeah.
And even that was, they had twist upon twist. Wherever it could go conventional, it would go left.
Yeah, and that is what I loved about the script. And you're right. Like you brought up the point. It's like when, say he corrupts him, he goes, he's like, go ahead, say fuck. And the kid goes, fuck. He goes, are you still alive?
Yeah.
Are you still like, see, kid, it's not that bad. It's not like you're not going to hell or anything like that. And when he takes him, one of my favorite parts of this movie is when they're in the diner together and the kid brings out the cop car.
Right.
And like, again, and this is where the movie works because it has heart. You can't really hate Jason Bateman, and again, it's the old television reference where he brings out the car and he takes a little ketchup and he goes, there's a little Kojak thing. And they had that really nice moment. And for me, look, if the movie didn't have any of that, and the kid, say, was, like you said, if he was too sappy, this movie would fall apart so quickly. And it really kept it, I don't know, it kept it fresh for a spelling bee movie, and the spelling bee is the background of the story. It's not even, it's almost like the MacGuffin. It's just the device for him to be going to this, and it was good stuff. I like that. And that kid was great.
Yeah, it was a very fun relationship. I mean, I think that he has, 3 people that he more or less is trying or does connect to throughout this film.
In varying degrees.
Don't look at me.
So bizarre.
Don't look at me.
So bizarre. Shall we talk about that? No, go ahead.
I mean, what do I have to say about him and her?
Well, again,
definitely, I feel like in this film, like
Kathryn
very
Hahn.
easy to make her the pillar to lean on and be supported by, and the one who really understands him, and to just kind of strip her of that and be like, nope, you're still stuck in this situation, without her actually ever really playing up the trump card that she's the reason he's there. I mean, I think
brought
she
it up
brings
in the
it
beginning, and that's about it.
once in the beginning and like once towards the very end. I thought it was a very interesting dynamic. It was different.
That's so diplomatic of you. That was just outright weird.
Yeah, well,
But the thing is, instead of a woman being a device for understanding or moral support, it was for, to me, plot device and comedy. more than anything. And I thought that was an interesting twist because it's so
Yes.
much often that's where the man's emotional stability comes from.
And you could
or
see
that's
him
where the
arcing
change
because of
happens.
her.
And that it wasn't
that.
that, and it was focused on the little
Yeah.
boy. I thought
Again.
that was very good.
A conventional way, and they avoided it.
But it wasn't for lack of trying.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't
That's
as
true.
it wasn't as if this Jenny Widgeon didn't try to say, open up, and I'm trying to, and he's like, see, now you're acting like a reporter. I'm done. It's not for lack
Well,
of trying.
but
Right, but
that's
she-
the thing that kind of bothered me because we see her throughout the whole movie trying to dig into Guy and trying to get his backstory and build his character. And I get she was there for that, for him to really open up about himself. But the fact that there was that one moment where she turned on the recorder,
Right.
but we never got the resolution to what she used with that information. Like, it wasn't reported anywhere. It was just a moment for him to open up. So I felt like her reporting instincts and aspects that were used throughout the movie weren't used to their full extent.
You didn't get to see the payoff of her role.
There
in this
wasn't the
film.
resolution to her reporting skills to that.
Not to her reporting skills, but
Because
they
throughout
do.
the whole movie, she's saying she's trying to get at least one quote for him, and then we see this moment where she gets this whole story on him, but we don't see it. Like, people don't realize it; just the audience do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Wasn't that
definitely
reveal?
there's not a payoff for her.
Yeah.
Besides
Other
the fact
than-
that there's a handhold
And they
at
end
the
up.
other end.
You can sort of make the leap that they end up together. That he.
You could,
You
but
know,
I don't need it. I mean, for me, the payoff was that she found out and then she relayed that information. So
Sure.
other than that, they weren't using her for his arc
No.
in the beginning or throughout. So I didn't need her to be the
Well,
arc at the end.
Other than that,
It was the kid
at
that you
the
needed
end-
that relationship resolved. You
Yes.
didn't need hers resolved. Because the other thing is, we have no idea what this character was like absent of him being aware of who his father is. Who knows if he was a nice guy or a bad guy or the same guy? Maybe because he says, I don't know. I don't know if this is a good idea. But this is where I am now.
This is where I am
So
now.
this could just be his how long the thing is, 6 months, 6 weeks. I don't know how long he's been on this thing, but I found that fascinating because had he not learned this, I don't know that he'd ever met this person, the reporter.
Right.
We have no idea how he'd respond to her, but she was clearly in the way of his goal. His goal was, I've got to get here, do this thing, and you're just kind of you're only helping me along. But other than that, you stop interrupting
And
me.
that's,
And
that's
she
what
also
I was
held up-
having problems because we see her, she gets that information from the FBI agent, but she's not the one that revealed it. It was Guy who told it to the audience. I'm like,
Right.
okay, so what was her whole point in getting that?
But
to
she-
force him to say it.
yeah.
Yeah, but she
But-
also too was because she was also like he used her as the legal aspect of whatever he was doing.
But the
Like,
only thing
was
she
it.
knew was that who his father was. She didn't know the story behind it.
No,
So that's
she
what we got
didn't-
to learn was the
yeah.
story behind it.
Yeah, and for him, I think as a reporter to see that an adult found a loophole and that he's going to try to she didn't know what his motivations were for doing this. But again, I'll go back to the beginning. Again, I think something else that was very smartly done, and it was, usually overvoice can be so cliche and whatever, but in this case, you found out through pieces of dialogue or through pieces of overvoice, well, how is he such a good speller? Well, A, he's a proofreader, so he knows words. B, he does have, it was mentioned that he has some semblance of a photographic memory. So
And he has a genius IQ.
yeah, and so that makes sense why he's such an amazing speller and how he can do this. So then you come up with the loophole, and at the beginning she's like, yeah, and now she's on the phone with my lawyer, and he's gonna come down here and you're calling me a terrorist. Oh, well, defamation, throwing that stuff on there too.
Defamation of character.
Yeah, and so he knew how to work the system, and she was helping him work the system. But from her perspective, it was probably, wow, this adult found this loophole, and he's gonna show all these people off. But she didn't know. She knew there was a story, but he wasn't biting.
So I think instead of the reporter aspect, they should have gone with the lawyer aspect. She could have been a lawyer that was tagging along just to help him. Because for her research part, I don't think that was.
I like the
For
reporter
the research,
because
I don't think
she's
it was
digging.
fully-
How would
I think
how
he's
would
digging, and I think that-
lawyer find out? What
I
she
think
found
But
that
out?
lawyer does
on top
research
of it,
too,
it's a multi functional role. I think on top of that, one of the things that's first introduced is that each contestant must have press or be associated with press, and so she fulfilled
Has to be
that
sponsored in
as
some way,
well.
yeah.
So you know, they were just in total it was a very minimal like cast of like. So the fact that she could accomplish all those roles, maybe it was a little forced. I think that one thing this movie had to have was every part of his like horrible upbringing lent him to be able to do this. Because like if he hadn't been with the mom who was going around, like he would have passed 8th grade, and then he that
running away
whole-
from the rent. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like they had to clarify each thing on a rule basis just to make it justifiable that he could be in the spelling bee. And I think that there's so many that they had to kind of spread them out where they could. And to me, it worked. I mean, I think that if I really thought about it, how crazy it would be for someone to be in those circumstances that this could happen.
Yeah.
It takes you a little bit out of it.
Sure, but you know the other thing, I think it
But-
is crazy, but I also go, this is a woman who says, "Don't look at me, don't look at me."
Don't look
She's
at-
already not quite all there.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but
she sees
she's
a
a little
story.
damaged, right.
She gets hint of a story. However, that some 40-year-old is breaking into or wants to break into spelling bees, and she thinks I've got a hot story on my hand.
And we have to face it
That's
too.
how nuts she is.
Yeah, but there is some semblance of an attraction there as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's that other guy whom she gets the
the
information
FBI guy.
from, the FBI guy that lays the hit out on her, and she's just like, no, see ya, I'm going to my room. So there is an attraction to the Jason
Oh,
Bateman
yeah.
character that she has.
Yeah, which
And,
also
you know,
says a lot about her. It's like, why do you
Right.
keep doing this?
Well,
Get
yeah,
away
why-
from this man. He's not good for
and
you.
she says that too. She's like,
Yeah. So she's aware enough,
did it
just
again.
not strong enough to do
Right.
anything about it.
right. Which is fine.
It
We're
is,
all,
no,
they're
it's
all
that's
damaged
right.
characters. in
Exactly,
one
they're
way,
all
shape, or form.
damaged, which I thought was great.
Except for the little kid who now swears, gives the middle finger.
Who's gonna be damaged like the rest of us?
And who has maybe some problems with
Daddy
hookers.
issues.
Daddy.
Daddy issues and hookers, but I mean, whatever
Oh my
you
God,
say.
that scene, that kid's face
Which one?
with the hooker.
Oh,
And he
yes.
shows- he
Oh,
goes, Well,
okay.
not
What was
no,
her name?
not all
What was her
girls have
name?
nipples.
She had a great
Something with like
name.
an M.
Yeah, it was a
Wasn't it?
great name.
Not all girls have nipples.
Yeah.
I forget. We could
That
probably
was
find
great.
out.
Oh, and then you can see already how corrupt he already is how much more to touch him.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, the poor kid.
He's-
see, I
yeah, he
thought
was
that
like,
was
fuck
gone.
ice cream.
Exactly. Terrible, the poor kid.
Yeah, no, I thought it was. No, that's not her.
I'm looking too. I'm looking
Everybody's looking at
too.
it.
We are trying to find
I
the
thought-
name of the wonderful
Marzipan. Her name is
Marzipan.
Marzipan.
There it is.
She's a
Some food.
cheese.
Yeah.
Wow, she's the candy.
There you
Kimley
go.
Smith.
Oh my god, that was so bizarre. Again,
That scene was great.
everywhere you'd go conventional, it's like, oh, okay, that's enough. Good. All right, move on.
Well, the whole conversation came about with not all women have nipples. What? He goes, well, sometimes you see them, but sometimes you don't. Oh, come with me. That's but the look on the kid's face was like, I mean, that kid was awesome. The kid was really, really good. Could you imagine just being like, I mean, and again, I give the parents credit. I give Jason Bateman credit because he's the one that has to go sell this to not only the child actor, but he really has to sell it to the parents. He has to say, okay, look, this is what I'm going for. This is what your son's bringing. Yes, he's going to be surrounded by me talking filthy, and he's even going to swear. But there was a motivation. There was a reason behind it. It wasn't just for the shock value of a kid saying bad words. There was reason behind it. And when the relationship bonds, when they get to that final spelling bee, even then you never really think that maybe the relationship isn't fully bonded, because Jason Bateman's walking out of the room. And he's like, bye, and he just gives him the finger, and he walks out, and you're going, well, of course that's how that's
That's
going
how
to
they
end.
bond.
But when he sees him, when he picks him up at school, and, he's in the cop car.
They're playing cops and robbers. I
Yeah,
mean, how much
awesome.
better can it be?
But that was great.
It's great.
Like, and then you just feel
Slightly
Jason
dangerous.
Bateman-
Oh
slightly
yeah,
dangerous.
but
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to run over
nothing.
those
I mean,
kids.
he's not a good role model, but it's fitting.
but you know what? I think that the movie was smart enough in which that character, he had his arc.
Oh, absolutely.
And the final spelling bee is proof of that, and him. Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to this kid and
Yeah,
find
well,
this kid.
he wrote the note. I mean, he had,
Yeah.
he had
Yeah.
really good moments. He had wrote the note to his father. He was actually kind to her at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and then he had the moment with the kid. They resolved a lot of
Yeah,
things.
yeah. I think, and it did it without going over the line. It was. I can't call this a sappy movie by any stretch.
No, and I really accepted the friendship that he built with the little kid, because during the movie when they were finally bonding, that he says, yeah, you're smart, but kids don't care about that. You're going to get picked on. And then we see at the end of the movie when the kids are picking on the little kid, and he's the friend that's going to be there who's not going to be, because he knows what that's like.
Yeah.
And I liked how they built that friendship in that way.
Yeah,
That was a very good build.
And again, just going back, Jason Bateman. This is another part we haven't. There was a vulnerability to his character, and he even goes, "I always try to build a vulnerability into any role I play. If you don't do that, then the audience won't go on with the journey," which is true in this case.
Absolutely.
And if you can find the relatable thread, the humanity of the character, then you'll have the audience's attention. And in this case, I think you just have to play it so carefully.
He did, because he was. This is not the right term, but he was falling for the kid. Meaning he was.
absolutely.
You could see him not even being aware of it. He was unwittingly building a relationship with this kid, in a weird way, but in a way that was paternal, and looking out for him, all that other stuff. And then when he overhears that, overhears the son and the father talking, he just goes
felt
ballistic.
betrayed.
Exactly, of course. And again, another tantrum moment with him going, okay, that's it. And
Stomping on
burning
the car.
Todd and the whole thing.
Oh my God! That again.
Poor Todd.
Poor Todd. But you got to see a wonderful little thing, because he does arc towards the end like crazy, because you see that that paternal sense of protection coming back, because he doesn't want the kid to have a horrible childhood like he did.
And again, the parents, it's sort of hinted too that the pressure that a parent can bestow on a kid, for the spelling,
Whether
bee in
by their
this.
absence or by their presence.
True.
So
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. the line where he says, "Yeah, my father sits in first class, but he says I should sit and coach like everybody
it
else."
builds character.
Because it builds character, and even that Jason Bateman's character is like, dude, that's messed up. That's crazy. And he stays at a much nicer hotel, and he lets me be myself.
See, I thought that was very interesting just for the little kid. And then once it was revealed that this was a whole, I guess, scam, it had me questioning that whole plan. Like,
right.
was the father very rich and actually wanting this, or was this a plan from before we even met him?
I'm gonna say it was a plan.
Like through even in the plane ride, because that to me I was just like, oh,
That's how
it fooled
Machiavellian
me too.
the dad
like,
is. Yeah.
such planning.
Yeah, but planning, knowing where someone's going to sit on a plane, that's very Machiavellian.
I know, I don't. But
I
I'm
don't
just. I just said, yeah, okay, I'll believe that.
I think the plan, I mean, for me, I didn't think it went as deep rooted. I think it was when they're at the hotel and he's like, oh, and the father sees this guy and he's like, oh, maybe it was a story that he read that woman reported in the newspaper about him, because he was gaining notoriety. He had he had a bit of notoriety for what he was doing.
Yeah.
And so the father was like, oh, okay, this is going to be competition. In fact, the father
There's
wasn't
worse
doing
competition,
anything he wasn't doing anything that Jason Bateman's character of Guy was doing to the kids.
Yeah.
The father was taking out the competition, just like Guy was systematically taking them out. Yeah. I like the
telling
way
you,
Guy
those
did it
spelling bees
better.
are cutthroat.
Oh, yeah.
But then also, Guy using that disconnect between the kid and his father, and then there was that one moment where he fake called being the kid's father to say, like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take you for ice cream, and we found out that the kid doesn't even bond with his own father, but using that against him
Yeah.
was cold.
Yeah, and it was great
Literally.
because
But brilliantly done.
Yeah.
exactly, because you saw how much the kid wanted to have that moment with his
Yeah.
father.
Right.
That was just sad.
Yeah.
But
And
the
then-
kid's
and
so
then-
smart. The kid's so
friends,
smart. He goes,
Oh,
"Damn, I've been
Fool.
duped."
when he's standing outside. It's like, no.
Oh, it's terrible.
It was. Again, it was just... All I could, when I saw the movie, thank God there were these two other women who was sitting about 4 seats to my right. And when did I see this movie? Tuesday night, I think it was. And it was relatively, I'm going to say it was about 80% full, which sort of surprised me on a Tuesday night. And but these two women, man, they were hooting it up as loud as I. And I was like, thank God, because I would be probably the loudest of the bunch. Thank you for being here. It was great.
I think I see movies at unconventional times because every time Demetri, we were just talking about another movie before this, and I see movies at like 11 o'clock showing and 9 a.m. showing. These are the showings in which it's me, myself, and I pretty much in the theater. Sometimes there's like the one other random group where like there's two couples and then it's like me. And I'm like by myself, just watching my movie.
Well, I was surprised.
I saw this movie in the morning, and there was probably 3 other people. So, and that started my day off with this kind of movie. So.
I saw it completely alone.
Sets a good tone.
Yeah.
Speaking of
But
that,
I don't think it's a remark on how the movie's doing because I think that it's been doing very well. It's just unconventional.
right. Let's talk about how it's doing. So do we have numbers on
I
that?
do. I do have that. Well, let's say number one, it opened up on March 14th. So it opened up, well, not over a month, almost
And
a
it
month.
went through
but-
kind of like a
Couple weeks,
change. Originally, this was where did it premiere? Does anyone know? I think it was Toronto Film Festival. And then the rights were bought over and then it went.
Well, it had a big premiere at South by
September
Southwest
6th
Yeah,
at the
it-
Toronto at TIFF.
at TIFF, and it had a big premiere. It had its like major premiere at South by Southwest, and it opened up at 6 locations, and it did 114,000. With a location average of 18,000 per screen. Not too bad. Not great, but not too bad. And then it has eventually opened up to 142 locations, and it's done $4.1 million thus far. So, the only thing that I couldn't find on this is what its budget was. And, I mean, it doesn't look like it was overly expensive. It was a focus
I can't
feature.
imagine it being overly expensive.
And they were
pretty contained.
They
Yeah.
were filming everything at, what was it, the Sun something Lodge?
Yeah, and it
no,
was
the
Sportsman's
Sportsman's Lodge
Lodge.
down here in
Sportsman's Lodge,
Ventura.
and the
Yeah.
Pasadena Convention
Yeah,
Center.
that's right. Sherman Oaks.
So, I saw a lot of that. So,
I noticed Colfax as one of the streets that they showed. I was like, oh, that's not too.
It's
We
all
know that
right.
area.
It couldn't have taken that long.
Not that it's against quality, but like to me, I think I've just seen so much advertising for it here in LA. Like there's so many of the billboard out there for Bad Words, and I see it all the time. So I'm like, but compared to the budget of the film and like what they went through, I'm like, wow, I feel like their media output's probably about the same as their
As their
filming budget.
No, that's interesting because I haven't noticed any, but I haven't really been paying attention. I just haven't. I'm
They've
not
been around.
Yeah, it's been around, and they did a big, Focus distributor, which is falls under the Universal umbrella.
Okay.
And they started off. My first recollection of the movie was a Red Band trailer, Bad Words, Jason Bateman, and I looked at this Red Band trailer and I was hooked. Like I saw that Red Band, I'm like going, I am gonna love this movie, and they kept on releasing things like that, and which was pretty cool. I think they did, they did as good a job as you can do marketing this movie. They knew, it was, but I think it was also they had the faith in Jason Bateman and what he did. Now, one thing too is like Rotten Tomatoes currently it's at a 64%, which is still considered fresh. But you could tell that some of the harshness perhaps might have turned some people off.
It may have. It's hard to say because as a movie, I think it's a well constructed, well executed movie. I think it's very good.
Yeah.
But the only thing I can think that turn it on is if it's not your cup of tea. It's not your cup of tea.
Yeah, it's not your cup of Yeah, and maybe we can even look at some of the headlines of the reviews. If we can find some, but I was
because in terms of let's break it down in terms of their departments because we know we've talked a little bit about story, but let's get more into script. Go ahead.
Also, what I can give you about the budgets, because I'm trying to look it up here, is according to Variety that this film was under 10 million. It's not giving exact amount. It says
I could easily believe that.
I know that the deal was made for 7 million but that was for I believe it being the rights being bought. But I think that they're mostly quoting it as under $10 million budget. Bad Words cost under $10 million.
Under 10.
According to
10.
Variety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that seems about it.
Yeah.
Would you
There
agree?
you go.
Yeah, I
Especially
mean,
because-
it definitely, you know,
And
what
how
did it
much
take
is
them
it-
a
because it
month?
How
felt-
much does a billboard cost in LA? Anybody
yeah, I
know?
don't know. That's it.
Well, I mean,
Well,
I
Dallas
don't-
Buyers Club is what, 5 million? 5 to 7 million. I can't remember what it was, but it kind of had that same feel in terms of its look and stuff like that.
yeah, and I
Not-
didn't
not
know what
age-wise, but
the
just, production value. Go ahead.
yeah, I don't know how much focus put into the prints and advertising.
Yeah.
Let's face it, this thing is only at an 840, somewhat 42, 47 locations.
Yeah.
It opened up at 6.
Yeah.
So this isn't, you know, the movie probably won't get over 1,000. I think 847 is its cap. You know, I mean, there are other movies that are coming out,
Right.
and you
Which
know,
is
with
kind of a
this-
shame if you ask me, because there are other movies that are getting much better release, which aren't anywhere near as good.
yeah, I agree.
It happened.
I know, happens all the time, but
No, I mean, and so it's, I don't know. I mean, Focus had enough faith in Jason Bateman, and obviously he's already directing another movie with Nicole Kidman that he starts filming in May.
Which I'm sure he's very
So-
sorry, because I know that I was reading that he's been in the acting game for quite
Oh,
a while.
geez,
He
yeah.
was his father's an actor director, but he was quoted to have said he's been acting for the past 20 years to get to the point to be a director, and that's really why he was wanting to be in this business and acting. I'm assuming that's why he wasn't as gung-ho about portraying
Being in
this
it,
role, because
yeah.
he wants to direct. So, and I think that he made a very nice debut.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll look forward to seeing more.
'Cause
of
I
his
don't think you
directing
could say
films.
that in any way that this was not a good directing
No,
directorial debut.
Yeah, you're probably gonna hate me for bringing this up, but I'm gonna go. You know, I was thinking about this after. Is that, you know, yes, I think he did a very good job directing this movie. It made me think of Veronica Mars, where we talked
Hate
about
You.
its load. Yes, well, Bad Words didn't look like a TV show. Bad Words looked like a movie to me. You could tell it was an independent film.
Yeah.
And you can tell, but it didn't look television-ish
Right.
at all.
That's what I meant
He
by
had
the
good, decent value.
comparison to Dallas Buyers Club.
Right.
That looked like a movie. This looked like a movie to me.
Yeah, and you know, he comes from the TV. He's directed television episodes before, and if this is his goal to keep on, listen, this guy doesn't stop working. He was on Howard Stern, and he was talking about, he goes, you know, I spent a good chunk of my life like just partying around.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, he said, I'm at a point in my life now. He goes, yeah, I want to work. I don't want to blow my opportunity. I don't know how long it's going to be around for, and so I'll direct. I'm in Horrible Bosses 2, which I saw him in another interview. He's talking about Horrible Bosses 2, and he's very proud of that. And he was an identity thief. He was. He's acting. Now he's directing. He starts another movie in May with Nicole Kidman, and he's like, yeah. He's like, so he's got his family and he's
Guy.
living his dreams.
He's
Good.
capitalizing on it.
Yeah, so good for him. Good for him. As long as he makes people
But
laugh.
don't you think that because of this effort, he should get more opportunity?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that if you're taking, I think that I was pretty much I would, just on the outline of this movie, of it being, you know, that dirty, harsh, aggressive comedy, I think I was not the target audience. And the fact that I like it so much means that he did a very good job, I think, because when you can bring in those kind of like the outliers that you don't think are going to like your film, and they do, that shows that you can tackle different genres, that you
Yeah.
can approach different stories, and you're going to shed some new light and some.
So I think he took some risks by first of all doing this, because this is not an easy one to do. Then he showed great skill in being able to handle the tone well. Because, like you said, if you go overboard, too sappy in this area, too harsh in that area, you're gonna have a very uneven film, and you're gonna limit your audience even more. And I think he walked a very fine line and did it well.
Yeah, and you know, when he first was reading the script, he was he's
By
quoted
Andrew
saying,
Dodge,
like,
by the way.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, another spelling bee movie." He goes, oh, and then he's like, and then they bring in a kid. He goes, "Oh, let me guess." He's like, and this is what Focus gave for him project. He goes, he's like going, let me guess. He goes, oh, he befriends the kid, and they blah blah blah, and then he goes, but I kept on reading, and I'm like, whoa, this is really solid. It didn't, to your point, there was conventionalism, and then somewhere down the
They
line,
tweaked it every way.
took a left-hand
Just
turn.
when you thought
and
I was going to go here, we go there.
Yep, we zigged when we
and it-
zagged
We
and-
wanted to zag.
And you know, to his credit, he did do a fine balancing act. Personally, I was laughing hysterically throughout it. God, and again, it's the kind of thing that can't happen. You know, you can't say those things in real life. And that's what I love about the movies. And even sometimes, well, you can.
You
Yeah,
just
well,
might
let's
get a
face it.
chair chucked at your
How
windshield.
often are you able to have that stuff come trippingly off your tongue pristinely?
Exactly. And it's like, that's why I love that kind of humor, because it only happens in that world.
Right.
And it's hysterical. Sometimes it's like when he goes off on that mother.
Yeah.
Like, that was just genius to me. But she deserved, in my opinion, every single thing she had coming to her. And it was like, hey.
Well, I can't go that far, but
I do.
I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah. And then when she started doing that stuff at the spelling bee, it was like, she showed her dark colors.
I enjoyed watching it because I was very comfortable in my cushion leather seat, and it was on a screen.
Can you
This
imagine
is
if you
the
experienced that in
only
real life?
way I could experience this.
But again, she attacked him. Like, she came up to him and said, why don't you just, like, get out of this? You don't belong in this with blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
and then she swore in front of the kid, and he's like going, really? Like, you're that much better than me. You just swore in front of a kid.
Yeah, but she, but she launched a little spitwad, and he had a barrage of a howitzer, a couple of tanks.
That's right.
And the thing is, though, it's if you see these things in person, not captured in cinema. If I was sitting at the table next door, I would probably be cowering under the table, and then I might
be
throw
applauding.
some hot chocolate at his face and run away.
But we don't see this.
Well, that's why it's kind of a
real.
vicarious thrill, because there have been times when somebody has accosted you and you've wanted to
just
be able
wanna
to
go,
in decorum or civility,
go back up that
or
sock
whatever. Exactly.
It was
Doesn't
great.
allow you
And
to.
the dialogue.
And who
was
hasn't
like,
wanted to strip away all artifice and just go right at somebody?
right.
Nothing? No ladies? Never?
Really?
Oh, come on. You haven't want to call
You
somebody to
are-
task?
I have
All
never
the
lying to
time, but
yourself.
I
I
don't.
have never had
Marissa,
a
never?
monologue.
All the time, but I don't.
Oh, no,
Okay.
of course
But
not.
that's what we're saying. All the time, but we
No,
don't.
we
But
don't.
we don't.
No.
I don't think my mind has ever gone as far as his monologue towards that woman.
Poor thing, you.
I don't believe you.
The thing, the thing that I found interesting is, yes, we see Guy say all these harsh, offensive things to all these different people throughout.
Right.
But then the one person he really wants to tell it to is his father, and
Yeah.
he doesn't really. I mean, he tries to write it down in the note, but the way the father reads it, but it's not in the harsh backlash at him. It's in a more an adult, conservative way, I guess, of saying what he really wanted to say, but not in that mean version that we see him
Well, there's
do throughout the whole
forgiveness
movie.
in that letter.
Well, not only that,
and
but that shows his arc.
Yes.
Because he spewed all his venom, which you're right. He should have directed it squarely at the dad. But by that time, he had kind of gone out of the tantrum, and you could see the maturity come back. And he was just honest without having to be
And
Well, like,
ruthless.
Harsh, yeah.
Yes.
The glimmer of this comes on a lot earlier in the film when he's talking, and they're talking about the spelling bee, and they're talking about what it is. He goes, the point is to win, and he goes, or the point, or someone, I think it says the point is to, the word closure is
Yeah, he
used.
used the word, yeah.
And obviously someone won in the actual spelling bee. So here was the closure.
closure, yeah.
And that wrapped it up to me, and that was the arc, and it just encapsulated kind of what the movie was about. And for me, I kind of knew he wasn't going to fight, he wasn't going to seek revenge, because overall that one word earlier on showed what he was really searching
Foreshadowing
for.
you.
Yes. And so like I felt very relieved when he achieved that closure, because it was really, they say as an actor you have that line of truth where this is very much the core or your character's inner truth, and for me it was always that word. So the fact that he got to that point and circled to it and found it, I was very satisfied with.
Yeah, and it happens at a great time too, because his goal throughout this was to humiliate his father and his father's ideals and what he did, because
And his legacy.
and
He
his
wanted-
and because his father put himself up. I mean, that guy put himself up on such a pedestal. He wanted to bring him so far down and ruin everything that he had. That was his goal. His goal wasn't to come out and like,
Oh, he didn't care.
right.
He didn't care about what happened to him or anybody else.
No,
The
he just
scorched earth policy. I'm getting him. I don't care about anything else.
And it wasn't going to be like through a conversation. He goes, I was going to humiliate him in front of on live TV. I was going to take this show down and show him how he made me feel. And when he has that, he goes through his arc, and it comes down. Of course, it comes down to
course.
him and the little kid, and and then when it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, even that again, totally unconventional. You expect, okay, the kid will win, and the kid spins it around on him. I mean, again, it's every way you could spin it differently, they did.
Yeah.
So, and let's give our kudos to our writer. His name is Andrew Dodge, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I don't have any idea what a CV is.
Andrew Dodge. This is like his first screenplay.
Well, congratulations to him.
He's doing something. His second one is going to be Oh Lucky Day, which is in pre-production right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Bad Words looks to be his first screenplay.
Well, congratulations again.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
just smart.
Masterful job.
Yeah, he
Way
does
to
it.
twist things around.
And play outside of convention.
Yes.
It's funny. We did talk about reviews and what could potentially why people didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So from the Robert Evergreen of the Globe and Mail, the laughs in this film are all mean-spirited or just frat boy jokes. I'm like, no, or frat boy gross. And I'm like, did you see the same movie? Because if you stuck, like I hand it to you because you stuck through, and and Marisa as well, because you didn't want to see it at all. I didn't like. It was above and beyond just bad words and.
Well, yeah, I think
boy
that's too simplistic, and I think they just missed it.
Yeah.
I think to say it was all frat boy humor, I think you totally missed it.
Hangover 3 is frat boy humor that doesn't
the
go
upcoming
anywhere.
Neighbors exactly is frat boy humor.
I saw the movie and I'll reserve. Yeah. We'll talk. Well, if we dissect it, I'll talk then. But I saw the movie last week and it is frat boy humor. The Wesley Morris. I didn't like anything about the movie before discovering that guy. What Guy is up to. I actively hated it after I figured out what was actually going on. Wow, this guy really didn't like it. So. Yeah, it's just very interesting.
Well, for those of us who did like it, I'm going to add to the point about Andrew Dodge creating this new film, as you said, called, I believe, what was it? Oh Lucky Day.
Oh Lucky Day.
I think we're going to be looking forward to some more very clever wit, because the credited cast as of now is Peter Dinklage, who, in the case you guys don't know, is on Game of Thrones and is wonderful. So,
Are you a fan?
I can't tell.
I just got very excited for this movie that I know nothing about.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Those comments, those reviews were very interesting.
Yeah, and an intermittently entertaining and very occasionally unpredictable comedy. What's wrong with an unpredictable comedy? I mean,
It's not as cliche as they want it
I know.
Yeah,
We keep talking about how we want something different, and why all these sequels. Here a movie is it turns convention on its head, and does something out of the box, and doesn't get rewarded for it.
Yeah, I agree. And let's see, but the other things that I was looking at about this movie is not only Andrew Dodge, but there are some other people involved with this flick. That were associated with some other movies that we've come to know and love. Let's see. I think it was either the editor. All right. Well, the editor has done movies like Project X, Bad Words. He did Step Up 3D. Recall the Fair Game, Donnie and Clyde. So he's done some, Project X, I think, was probably his biggest movie. Let's see. We also have, I think it was the editor that may have worked on The Way Back.
I was interesting that you said that, because as I was watching it, there were moments that, again, maybe because it was the budget or whatever, but it did remind me of that. Only, I don't know exactly, but maybe because there is a kid involved. I don't know.
A spirit of it.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, Tatiana S. Regal. And when I noticed Way Back, I said, well, too, how does the editing come into, because Way Back had a lot of heart. We talked about that. And can you edit a movie around so that, you can give a little bit of heart? Because she also did,
definitely.
She worked on Pulp Fiction at some point. She did Fright Night, Bad Words, The Men Who Stare at Goats. So, once I found out that she worked on The Way Back, I said, this woman's great. I like that. And, the pacing. Well, number one, thank God this movie was like only an hour and a half.
88 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. That was like great. It's a
That's all it
comedy
needed to
that
be.
doesn't. Yeah.
It's a very small, independent movie. It's the scale is small. Everything about it.
Fast paced.
I've said it before. Outside of It's a Mad World, no other comedy need be over an hour and 45 minutes. 2 hours,
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm talking to you, Judd Apatow. We
Yeah, oh my
don't need
God.
2 hour, 20-minute
God.
comedies. Like, just a comedy should be in, out, have fun, let's be done. So 90 minutes, when I looked at my
It
watch,
can be done.
it can be done. Should be done.
Let's. Do you have the cinematographer there handy?
I do.
Because we were just talking about the look of it. So and you.
I like
Well,
I like
Ken
the
Singh was the
s-
cinematographer.
Ken Singh.
Yeah, Ken
Okay.
Singh, that was the person that had done like Step Up 3
Okay.
and yeah, we were talking about
Oh, I thought you were talking about the editor when you were mentioning.
no, that's Tatiana.
Okay.
The cinematographer, he did Disconnect, Project X, Step Up 3D, Sorority Row, Quarantine, which is based off of a Spanish, really good Spanish horror flick, but he made that movie look good.
And
Okay.
he will be working again with Jason Bateman in their next film with Nicole Kidman. So they'll be rejoining.
I
Family
like the
Fang.
colorization of this movie because it was more that kind of sepia tone, the
The
brown
browns,
and
the
yellows.
neutrals.
And if it wasn't for the actual dialogue saying that up into 2011 and now, and the graphics, even the lower thirds during the spelling bee, I was like, those are new graphics. You can tell we're kind of in the today's era time. But if it wasn't for the actual visual telling of the audience of what time it is,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known the decade
The era,
that they
right.
were in.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that lent itself to kind of the topic of the film. Being, I think that there's like a classicness or like more of, I guess, in a way, the spelling bee has like an older connotation of tradition, of
Yeah.
age, whatnot. And I think that taking those tones kind of embrace that more. I think that if this was very bright and new, it wouldn't have seemed as realistic. I think that you kind of needed that layering of age and legacy
Yeah.
into this film, and I think the
Well,
colorization
the Golden
helped
Quill,
that.
of course.
Yes,
obviously.
Golden
like,
Quill.
you can't like put the golden quill with
Yeah.
like bright blue.
But you know, I thought it was hysterical when we actually did go to the public radio, not public radio, but public broadcasting, when they actually
Yeah.
showing it and everything got all of a sudden got hyper clear, and I thought that was just hysterical when they're
When they were
opening
going-
graphics. And it was,
Now,
I
was
thought
such a
that was
nice
great timing
contrast.
because from an audience point of view, we realize it's a film, but
Yeah.
then
Right.
when that all is going down, we're like, oh, this is film. But then they cut right to
Yeah.
the
the TV.
TV slate saying,
Right.
oh yeah, this also is being broadcasted too.
Yeah.
So you can't watch that. You shouldn't watch that.
No.
That was fun.
you know, we didn't talk about, somebody else who's worth mentioning because we did talk about Kathryn Hahn and Rohan, of course, but Allison Janney.
Great.
You know, Allison Janney again. And
worked
and
with him in was it
Just bring me
Juno?
back to-
Wasn't she in Juno with
Yeah,
him?
she
She
was.
was, yeah.
She's the mom.
And she was really good at the
She was
role that she
terrific.
had, and
You know,
Cold.
oh yeah,
She played a colder, darker character.
I'll get you.
yeah, I'll get you. Oh yeah, and
But it goes to show that like she's someone who's very set in her ways. She's been there every year. She knows the how
She's been the director
the-
for 20 years.
she knows how the spell bee is supposed to go. And then when you have this rude guy come in and break
Oh,
that
yeah.
system, that's gonna bother her. And she
Yeah,
played that so well.
I feel like she would have had a great friend in oh my goodness, oh no, I'm blanking on her name. Miss Congeniality, the director of the
Oh,
pageant.
sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Those two women would just get
Yeah.
along so well.
Yes.
yeah, nobody's gonna taint my.
She had a golden
this is my
quill up her
fiefdom.
ass.
Up her ass. That's a bad word. Now the other guy that was great too was this Steve Whitting who played the
Mumble jumble.
He played the proctor. You know, and
Oh.
he even gets his comeuppance because this is the
Yeah.
guy that's just reading the words,
Yeah.
and she just kept on like trying not to,
Enunciate.
and like I'm
Marble
hearing,
mouth.
Yeah.
he seemed to be okay and stuff, but he gets his comeuppance.
You know, it's
too.
all
That was
about
great.
everybody's got their little ounce of power. Everybody that's getting thwarted or in some way getting underhanded by some. Or I can't even use words at the moment.
It was people playing for positions of
Oh,
power.
yeah, exactly. It was all over the place, and I loved how anybody who had their thumb on somebody else would get screwed.
Yeah, and the proctor at the spelling bee, all he's trying to do is he's just saying the
Yeah.
words, and but it was nice to actually see that character get his comeuppance.
Yeah.
Because you talk about being hit
Everybody-
by shrapnel.
Everybody got their come up. Even the hotel desk clerk, she says, "Okay, here's your room."
Oh yeah.
She got a nice little present out of it.
That-
Lovely.
again, it was a great payoff.
Yeah.
Here you go. And again, you just sit
Basket of
there.
roses.
Yeah, I was laughing very
And
much.
you know, Philip Baker Hall does a nice turn there as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Because at the end there, when he's actually reading the letter, and you know,
Doesn't
and
leave it
shoots-
scattered on the ground.
and then it's taped up and everything, and it's obviously had an effect on him. He looked gutted there when he heard that. You know,
And he puts it next to his heart.
he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the symbolism was great.
I have a hard time. I always see him as the librarian police from Seinfeld. Yeah, you know, he's
All
just-
the movies he's done, and that's the thing.
I
you
know.
remember? Oh my
He
god!
was just so good at it. It was
Yeah,
such a
okay.
funny episode.
All
But you know, and then
But nobody misses even the announcer of the whole thing.
Which,
What's his name?
what are you talking
The
about?
announcer of the tournament. Who was
proctor?
with? Yeah, no, not the proctor, but the guy who was.
Oh no, the
Pete Fowler.
Yes.
That character.
Ben-
Yes.
Ben
Exactly.
Falcon.
Thank
Ben
you.
Falcon. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody
Yeah.
does a great job.
Everybody for again when you know you could.
This is what happens when I don't have my notes in front of me. I can't remember everybody's name.
But when you put everybody together, you know, obviously he's no qualms about he had to reach out to his friends to help him out, and you know they
Or
all
should
came
you have
on
any
board.
qualms, man? You're gonna be in
Yeah,
a movie.
and-
You're gonna have a good role, and it's
and-
gonna take you 3 days to shoot it. Of
Yeah,
course, you better get
and-
it. You show up.
But there was a
like for the
camaraderie.
Muppet movie. Show
Yeah.
up.
And there was a camaraderie, and like you could tell that he's put together a good crew.
Yeah.
And you know, making that leap from the small screen to do a movie, and you know, he had smart people around him, and he had good talented actors around him, whether you know they're good character actors, and they looked like they had a good time, and they looked like as if they were as supportive of Jason Bateman as he was of his cast and crew. And I think that, again, we always talk about movie magic and how that collaborative process works. And I think it helps here. When you're working on a small budgeted movie like this,
Yep.
you need that
Oh my
to get through it. So, yeah,
What
it
else
was
have
good
we
stuff.
talked about? We talked editing. We just finished our acting. What music
I mean,
bring?
I remember like the music kind of like in the beginning. I've noticed it in like the first two scenes. After that, I think I was just so overpowered by the language. And like this was, you know, it was a very auditory movie, but not for me for the music sense, but for the language sense. And I think my ears were so concentrated on the bad words that a lot of the music was going right over my head.
Yeah. I said it every time we do these. I don't really remember the music, and what I do remember was the absence of it. I didn't really, have any kind of sense that it was even scored. I mean, sure it was in some fashion, but I didn't really pay attention.
Yeah, and
I
this,
think because this movie was so dialogue driven that we didn't need music to also accompany it. We had everything within the
Yeah.
script and
I
the
also
writing.
exactly that's the other thing I was going to say about it. I noticed that you didn't need any musical cues to help you identify where the main characters were in their emotion.
I think that a lot of that stems from the hidden nature of his character. I think that music often is that it's that emotional pull. It like leads you to be scared or happy or whatnot. And you know, he had this such a hidden center. You know, he was putting out this very aggressive nature, but you always knew he was hiding something. So I think that that silence that you feel or remember comes from that, because you're left so unaware of what his true reasons are until the end, and like introducing him in the beginning with the voiceover. And I think that that also stuck with me. It's like there's some people who you feel are whimsical or powerful, and he is just very secretive, and I think that was expressed through the silence.
And
Yeah.
they do have some musical numbers. They have the
I think a lot of it was like source.
right.
Like, you know,
They
they
have the
were
montage
songs
moments
from a
and that
radio.
kind of
Right.
stuff, so, yeah.
Do you have I was trying to pull the soundtrack up on Apple.
on
and
I have it
iTunes.
on iTunes. Mostly, it was composed by Rolf Kent.
Right, but are there any like pop type songs on it that are not orchestral or score?
I think
That
I'm
are-
listening.
They
I'm
were at the
watching
end of the credits, but I
orchestral
can't
version.
recall them.
Yeah, but I thought there was some throughout as
They-
well.
you know,
I think that the moment I really noticed the music was the montage when they're going through the grocery store and
Right.
playing those pranks. I think that was
Yeah.
because there was no dialogue during that.
No.
It was just all fun action
Yeah.
on screen.
And they used just fun little things. I mean, I know it's such a little thing, but fun use of slow mo.
Right.
because it was very effective. They didn't overly do it, but when they did it, it punched the laugh.
Yeah, and they used it a lot too when they were in the car and they were doing fishtails.
Yeah.
And just looking the expression on both their faces, they were like going, "Yeah, this is like great." The kid was like, awesome, and regardless of and how everything turned out, when you find out that the kid's father was trying to play him, I didn't see that coming, but you did catch that kid was actually developing a bond with Jason Bateman that he couldn't develop with
it usually happens with a lead in going after my goal. I find that I have a bond with this kid, and they flipped it here. They had the kid falling, having a relationship with it.
Right. It was nice.
It's a nice twist.
And there was that one scene where the kid comes home, or the kid comes to this hotel room, and he opens the door. And through the crack of the door, you see the father there.
Yeah.
And my first instinct was like, "Oh shit, this kid's gonna get busted."
Exactly.
And then the father says like, "He's like, yeah, come in." And I was like, "Okay, that's weird," because I thought he was really gonna go ballistic, but it didn't. I didn't connect the dots to where.
Not until you find out later that it's all loose.
Definitely that. I think that while I was watching it, I was very confused because the shot sequence for that was you got him waking up after a shot of a bunch of empty bottles.
Yeah.
And there's no inclination that the bottles are ever moved or cleaned up before we return to the room. So automatically my mind's going to the fact that you're going to have this father thinking that he's drinking everything out of the minibar. And the fact that never got addressed to me was a big question mark. And I was like, before I found out obviously how the plot turned out, I was like, well, that's going to be a plot hole I'm circling. But then, of course, it's that it is part of the scheme, so it then makes sense why he didn't get in trouble. But it definitely is that spark for the viewer of like, what's going on?
Yeah, I know.
Something's not quite right.
Exactly.
Oh, that kid's in.
That's
And
why
again, it's one of those
well.
in a conventional movie, the kid would have come into the room, the father would have been there, hands on hips, going, "What are you doing? You're drinking," and he would have been, which would have furthered the bond between him and Jason Bateman because he's opposite the dad, but that didn't happen, and I was like, he's not in trouble.
Yeah,
what's going on here? Again,
So for the
cleverly
most part,
played.
I'd say that they were good at keeping us just behind
Yeah,
rather than ahead.
yeah, and I
It's
didn't.
nice.
Yeah, it
fun.
is. It's a preference actually. It's a pleasure to be.
Right, and
Usually
again,
it's like, oh,
regardless of the
here's
bad
here it
words,
comes.
I didn't, I wasn't as offended. Like I said, there was that one scene where I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they're going there with the girl in the ketchup packet." And it's just the way he's like, and he was like, "Well, congratulations." He goes, "You've just made it into womanhood." Womanhood. He was like, "Oh, this is fantastic. You should be celebrating this right now."
I just think it's hilarious that Demetri is, with all the bad words, and you focus on the one event that doesn't have any bad words.
No.
Right. But
That's such an ironic thing. It's wonderful.
I like the way he plays with people's minds too,
Oh, yeah.
especially during
Great.
that scene, because those are all the thoughts that go through a woman's head
Right.
when that
Yeah.
happens. And I'm like, oh, it's
new woman
so it's so realistic. It's sad that we shouldn't be laughing at
No,
this.
no, not at all. It's just like, but don't worry, you can scoot up and I'm sure.
We're not in front of nationally
Use a chair.
televised.
Right, it was, and then seeing the parents are like, what is going on? Like what?
It's such a long walk up to the mic.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that shot where it's in photo, and then it's like,
Yeah, and I was just wondering, are we actually going to see a ketchup? Are they? They didn't go that far,
need to.
I'm
and
glad
they
they
didn't
didn't.
need to. And I was like, but it was just, and again, the other kid was, the Asian kid that he rattles. He goes,
Oh, yeah.
give these back to your mom. She's,
She was very kind.
she's very kind.
she held me up.
She's
Wonderful.
Okay. And the way he says it was just like, it was
Gotta
just
get into their mind,
great.
man.
Yeah.
He was
Jerk 'em around.
and he was great at it. Your chair's crying out for help. Help!
Don't look at me.
Don't
look at me.
Don't look at me. So yeah,
It's a very quotable movie. I will give it that. Like, definitely, there's some things.
Oh, it's
I-
all dialogue. So yeah.
I'm gonna be saying, "Don't look at me" for a long.
Don't look at me. People
just
don't
so
look at me
bizarre.
already.
Okay, we're walking. All right. All right. Oh, now we're running. What?
Don't look-
Okay, alrighty. Well, there you go. That was a wonderful movie.
It was. I mean, again, for a comedy.
No, but I mean, even I'll take this when they're in the bath in the shower and he leans out the shower. Goes, is that easier? Yeah.
That
it's
is.
like,
What is going on here? And the mere fact that you get him to do it, like he gets it.
exactly.
And,
You're
you
just
know,
like, all right.
it's just funny. I'm just now I'm curious as to whether or not he'll do like a commentary when when it comes time for,
Oh God,
for
I hope so.
Blu-ray.
I hope so.
Because it could be very
I
interesting.
don't know why he wouldn't. It's his first directorial debut.
Yeah.
You gotta.
Yeah.
I think that there was, I mean, and I don't mean to sound nitpicky, but I've
Here it
been
comes.
no, I've been a part of spelling bees and stuff, but there are rules that you have to do when you're doing it, like when you're given a word to spell. You have to say the word out loud, then spell it, then repeat the word again to be considered correct. And then
okay.
the kids did it correctly, but when when Guy would go up, he would just say the word and it would still be correct. And
He
so
meant to
just
not
those
spell it,
little
yeah.
things, the inaccuracies of what a real spelling bee is like.
I think that that's a very good point because that's something that we are very, I feel like is very familiar to people to hear. It's like that resonation of like, blah, blah, blah. It's that
say the
final.
word.
What I like that changed about that is that he was doing it just so quickly. And then I think that with deleting the repetition, it made the pacing work well.
Sure.
Yeah, it was different and obviously in a way inaccurate. But I think that for the pacing and the attitude of the character, I think that works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The only
it's,
thing I
it's a
said-
good point on the pacing, but then we also saw the repetition of the kids always asking for origins
Sure.
or definition.
Yeah, I
in
absolutely
which
agree with that.
those are real things you can ask during spelling bee, but we saw that a lot, and
Yeah.
I thought that was very repetitive.
It
Interesting.
was. It
Yeah.
was. I just figured, okay, so the Golden Quill has different rules, and I just
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I just loved
I-
how they thought they were gonna stump him on the word. Like
Yeah.
they'd look at the
Yeah.
word and he'd go out there and he'd spell it, and then they'd go, "You are correct," and he'd throw the mic down.
I
Go
liked
back
how
up.
they would sometimes sync up the words with what was going on
Yeah,
or
yeah.
with
Yeah.
the characters.
Yeah, I would have loved to have known some of the
or-
definitions. There was a few
Same
words I was
here.
like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
what's that subtext for?
But
I can't know.
It was wonderful, and they did a good job of sometimes pointing it out and calling the attention to it, and sometimes just letting it play. Like, especially obviously when the kid has the words that are very reflective of the situation
Yeah.
with his mother, and that one's very obvious. Or like when they have his word and
Right.
he gets called out for it, also very obvious. But then you have like the little kid who gets the word that means something along the lines of like not developed yet,
Right.
and you're like, oh, I'm glad
Yeah.
they're not making too much fun
Yeah.
of those
Yeah.
ones. 'Cause
Like the
then-
last word that he won on, I don't even remember, but I'm going, okay, what does that mean? What is that? Because I figured it would have some
And,
sort of
yeah, they did such a nice
Yeah.
job of
contextual
that.
meaning.
And that's why I was trying to find just a word list from this movie, and I couldn't find it yet. So
I couldn't find either.
that'll be
Type
special
out.
features.
I thought the one that really stood out
Freedictionary.com.
was that I forget because of such a big word, but then the lady in the audience actually like, I know what that means. And that's what
Right.
you are.
That's
I thought that was really well done.
That was very funny.
yeah.
Definitely.
Are you calling me? What did it mean? It was like
Or
slovenly or something. Yeah.
I liked that nougat
Somebody's
was one of
dirty.
the words.
Nougat. I know. It's like, nougat. What?
I just thought that was hilarious.
God.
But it makes me want to. I don't know. Maybe it's the nerd in me. I just want to kind of look up in the dictionary. Like, are these real words? I kind of believe that they are.
Yeah.
I can
L-I-P-I.
guarantee you
Yeah.
it is the
They're-
nerd in
they
you.
are
That
real
makes
words.
sense.
Yeah, but I would
But-
say that they probably would be, and it was the other thing I was thinking about too is that this past year, although two smaller movies are already on my list as being some of my favorites of the year,
I'm
'cause
guessing the Spectacular now.
no, that was last year.
Ah.
Grand Budapest and this movie I really enjoyed, a lot. But then we saw a movie last night, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point very soon. that I really loved, but that's a big movie. But it was just nice that this movie sort of kind of comes out of nowhere. It's a very small movie. It's not, like we said, it's not going to go over 1,000 screens, and I don't know how much longer it's going to last. And Grand Budapest has built its thing, but it's not going to go commercially
I think
wide.
that I would argue though that Grand Budapest is definitely excelling to that point. I think that that's one of those indie movies that has somehow made it become mainstream or
But-
like trending or
Yeah,
whatnot.
but also Grand Budapest, directed by Wes
Wes,
Anderson.
right.
He has a building. He already has
Sure.
that following over years. Jason
Yeah.
Bateman, as an actor, has probably a following
Right.
from fans in his acting, but as a directing,
No,
kind of
yeah,
thing,
no,
it's a new
absolutely.
thing.
But one's like a Fox Searchlight or whoever. They're smaller movies compared to like a Divergent or.
Yes,
And
yes.
listen, 4.1 mil for thus far for Bad Words, I don't think is necessarily too bad. If the budget was under 10,
Under 10.
I mean, I don't exactly know what that means. That could literally mean 9.9 in studio speak,
Right.
and they can say, "Hey, we're under 10." So I don't see much foreign in it or what they'll do with the ancillary markets like when it goes to on demand and Blu-ray, but 4.1 for a movie that's on less than 1,000 screens or 142 locations, that's not too bad at this point. So I like how they rolled it out. I've liked how I've liked their marketing. Like I said, the Red Band trailer was what did it for me. It just hooked me, and I'm like, I'm gonna like this movie. I just love that acerbic kind of humor.
All right. Well, I think we've reached the gamut.
I think so. I
So-
think we talked about everything.
Last words?
overall, because I didn't want to go see this movie and then had watched it, it was actually very entertaining, very smart, and very dialogue driven, and I thought that was so well done, and I wasn't expecting that.
Demetri.
Bad Words is a very great, surprising, very funny comedy. Perhaps not for the meek of heart, but, it takes a lot to offend me. And bad words don't offend me. In fact, I've said it before, bad words make me laugh. And this had a lot of bad words. So I was laughing a lot.
I'm just going to go with.
For those who are only listening, she's just flipped us off.
I did what? What are you talking about?
Well, I can't say anything better than that. Thank you very much, Sarah, for putting the exclamation point on it.
I try. I'll do what I can.
All right, very much. Where is it that people can write in for us?
You can follow us on iTunes and website on
anatomyofmovie.com.
anatomyofmovie.com,
Thank you.
iTunes on iTunes, and then on Twitter at Movie Anatomy.
All right, so
Wonderful,
there's your
wonderful.
anatomy
And
movie for bad words. Go
and
ahead.
get people to, hey, you, as Phil said,
What's
you, the viewer,
You're the viewer.
comment.
Comment.
Watch us.
Watch us.
We will pay attention to what you say, and
Some of us
we'll
will.
write. No, we will. I will pay attention to what you say, and I'll write you.
Sarah is not going to thank you.
I don't have a Twitter.
I don't have a Twitter
Don't
either.
All right, before this devolves into something even worse, I want to say thank you very much for listening. On behalf of Marisa Serafini, Demetri Panos, Sara Stretton,
Thanks,
I'm
all.
John Comerford saying thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.
Thanks for watching Anatomy of a Movie on YouTube. For more on your favorite movies, subscribe to our channel here and be sure to let us know what you think in our comment section below here. Bye.